One of the most unnerving yet intriguing episodes of Star Trek was TNG's Schisms, and if you recognise the name then you know why. Also, the thumbnail probably gave it away. This event saw the one and only appearance of some strange subspace-dwelling lifeforms that were kidnapping members of the Enterprise crew and running detrimental, sometimes lethal, experiments on them. These creatures are technologically savvy, intelligent, and seemingly have a complete disregard for life. First up, I'll cover what we know of them in canon, which really isn't much, before diving into their more extensive lore in Apocrypha, such as Star Trek Online. They appear to resemble crustaceans, a sort of cross between insectoid and lizard-like almost, but it's difficult to tell from their appearance as the ones seen stand shrouded in hooded robes. They were around the same height as standard humanoids and appeared to have the same basic form: 2 arms, legs and a head. Their face was the only visible section, and while they appeared purple on screen, this was down to the lighting, as the actual masks used in the show were green. We also know very little about their biology, despite the fact that they can seemingly survive in both subspace and regular space-time, at least for a while. Their biology was Solanogen-based, which appears to be a compound or maybe an element not commonly encountered in the galaxy. In Apocrypha, this is what led to Starfleet giving them the moniker Solanae rather than Solanogen-based lifeforms. They have clawed-like hands and communicate through clicking of their mandibles, which are just about visible on their carapaced faces. So, as mentioned, they lived in a subspace layer, meaning that whatever biology and physiology they had, it did not have to conform to the laws of regular spacetime. They were discovered by accident when warp power was supplied to the long-range sensor array, causing the active scans of the Enterprise to pierce deep into the depths of these subspace realms. This alerted these creatures to the presence of the starship, and they began to focus a Tetrion-based device upon the origin of the sensor sweeps, opening up subspace rifts on board the vessel. Tetrion particles are unstable in our realm, and can only remain stable within layers of subspace, and we've seen creatures such as the Caretakers utilise such particles in their technology. It's worth noting that they too were masters of manipulating subspace. There may be a correlation between their inhabited subspace layer and a location in the galaxy. However, subspace distances do not directly add up to light years, so it's hard to judge. In case it's relevant though, the Enterprise was in the Amargosa Diaspora, a globular cluster of stars. In such a location, perhaps there is some subspace warping or weakening of the veil between the layers, or it could just not matter at all, and it was merely the fact that the Enterprise caught their attention which brought the Solanae over, just in case the exact modifications made to their sensor system were disseminated throughout Starfleet with a warning to, well, not do that. Their subspace rifts were accurate enough to target sleeping individuals and abduct them when they were isolated, with little ability to be detected, which means that they must have had some way to observe our reality through their multiple layers to know when to take people. On the far side of the rifts, the Solanae had formed a pocket of relative normal space to allow the abducted to exist within the depths of their strange realms, normally incompatible with most life. We've seen what happens when you bring a species into a realm it is not native to. It's not just a case of the atmosphere being a hazard or anything, it's literally just an incompatibility with the existence. Strangely, the Solanae seems to be able to operate within this pocket of our realm, perhaps through some tech, or maybe they just can survive it. They experimented on the crew members they took, exploring anatomy through surgical dissection and reattachment of still-living people, and while those that they took were sedated, snippets of the experience filtered through into their minds, leaving vague impressions upon returning to the waking world. The experimentation eventually escalated to lethal levels, when a crewman had his entire blood supply replaced with some form of polymer. Yeah, that killed him outright, and the reasoning behind their actions are still unknown. They're such a mysterious species that it's no wonder books, comics and games tackled them, attempting to flesh out the empty spots. So let's take a look at these interpretations too. Some speculate that their experiments were to thoroughly explore humanoid biology, to learn how to fully survive within our space-time continuum. In further stories, Gateway and Unconquered, we learn that there are two factions of these Solanae, one that wants to invade and one that does not. Little more was gleaned from these encounters except that one faction was peaceful. In 2386, the warp field of an experimental ship drew the attention of them once more, and the USS Titan was sent to investigate. It eventually also discovered that the Solanae were seeking a new home because their domain was falling to entropy, and that the experiments had the aforementioned purpose of understanding, but also with the aim to develop weapons. Again, while all factions among the Solanae wanted to escape their dying dimension, not all wanted to use violence to steal a new home, and proved amenable to dialogue. However, my favourite depiction is in Star Trek Online, but it is the least likely to be acknowledged in canon material, as it is all tied up to the Iconian invasion of 2410, and that is a lot of baggage to drop into the main continuity of the shows, so I doubt we'll see it implemented, but nonetheless, here's their backstory. During the heights of the Iconian Empire, some 200,000 years ago, they created servitor species to do their bidding. When they vanished from the galaxy, overthrown by an alliance of species who wanted their technology, they became warlike and continued their plans to rebuild, still using servitors aliens. One such selected species were these Solanae, who were also the species that developed the Dyson Spheres encountered by the USS Jenolan. These solar system-sized spheres could transition through subspace to move when fully powered and active, and were full of advanced technology that ran on both Tetrion and Omega energy. The Solanae acted as observers and scientists for the absent Iconians, alongside another species, the Alachi, and conducted their experiments to collect data on the more advanced species of the galaxy. They also created a number of bioengineered lifeforms to be used as weapons for Iconian use in softening up interstellar powers in preparation for their return. One such creation were the neural Parasites, which I've already done a bestiary on. The Solanae resided deep in subspace as a way to remain hidden from the rest of the galaxy, and they could use their advanced Tetrion tech to spy into multiple locations from their shrouded domain. These two apocryphal approaches differ slightly, and while I do prefer the more nefarious one, I cannot deny that their appeal lies pretty much solely in the unexplained, close encounters style abductions. The idea that these creatures, cowled and clicking, scuttle about the depths of subspace, peering up at the surface until an accidental explorer delves a little too deep and draws their attention. There are dark things that lurk beneath the surface of the ocean that is space, things so alien and strange that they might never be understood. And woe betide us if they realise there is more above the surface than they can see from their depths. So, what do you think of the other works shedding answers on their motivations and origin? One paints them as just aliens who want to explore how anatomy works in regular spacetime in order to adapt themselves to survive it. The other has them collecting information and forging monstrosities to be used against all powers in preparation for some arrival. Neither of these is canonical, and honestly, I'd be happy not finding out for sure, but I would like to see them turn up again at some point, but maintain that mystery. Thanks for watching this video on just what the Solanogen-based lifeforms are. I've been Rick, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.